Welcome back to Stream Critique Episode 2. I just wanted to say that the feedback and support on the previous episode was phenomenal, and I am super appreciative. You guys were just amazing. I was not expecting such an immediately positive response. I thought I'd have to work you into this show, and you guys are ready and on board already. So we're jumping in with Episode 2. We've got 2 more streamers, and I just wanted to quickly mention, we'll talk about them later, our sponsor for the series, Owned. Owned is a place where you can get pretty much everything you need for your assets and your branding for your live stream, and without them, this series would not be possible. So go check them out at eposvox.gg/OWN3D, linked below, and we'll jump into the show. We've got 2 streamers for this episode. As always, we're sticking with the format. 2 streamers. We're going to talk about, the things they're doing right, the things they're doing wrong, things that I think they can improve on, and I try to keep some sort of consistent theme for the episode. So be it a specific, thing they're doing wrong to focus on, or specific recommendations as far as what they could use to improve. For some people, I'll be recommending plugins. For some, it's about your composition. Some, it's about the way you're engaging your live stream audience. Things like that. That is what I want to focus on, with each episode. So today we're talking about 2 streamers who are a little bit different than what you expect for streamers, just due to the way that they kind of present themselves and the style of stream that they're having. So we're starting here with number 1, which is Chris Katara, or K Katara. I've had a mutual, I have friends who followed him and retweeted him a bunch and things like that for quite a while. He's been streaming for a while, and he seems to primarily stream PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG, on the Xbox One of all the places, which I thought was objectively the worst version of PUBG, but from the looks of it, they've actually improved it quite a bit over the past couple it's been out about a year, I think, on Xbox, and he's playing on the Xbox One X. Pretty cool. I can't tell for certain if he has some sort of direct partnership or sponsorship with PUBG, because he has the hashtag PUBG Xbox in the title, and he uses the overlay, which I'll talk about in a moment, but that's not entirely relevant to what we're going to be talking about here. Just wanted to cover what he was streaming. Overall, his stream is pretty solid. It looks all right for a PUBG stream. He seems to get decent viewership. His chat is relatively active. He actually has some pretty cool stuff set up. He has over 20 different chat commands that they can use to automatically play like an audio clip or trigger an action on his stream to either add pressure to him during, top 10 situations, or to just add a little bit of entertainment value. So for example, there are certain, I believe, bit donations where when he's given bits, he will always do some sort of dance on stream to react to it, which his audience loves, and can also really screw him over if, it's a top 5 situation in PUBG and he's in the middle of an intense battle. He will commit to that dance and add that little bit of extra chat engagement, which is pretty cool to see. I will say, however, his Nightbot commands are a little aggressive. Whenever I was scrolling through chat during slow periods, Nightbot was just there, big blocks of text over and over and over, and it's also supplemented by having all of those commands scrolling at the bottom of his screen, which is actually a good use of that space below the PUBG layout, and we're going to talk about his layout in a moment. But as I mentioned in a previous episode, there is an issue of small text, especially moving text on your screen, actually reducing your quality, because that's a lot of tiny details that the encoder has to update on an edge of the screen that the viewer's not going to be watching. And while it may not be a significant impact of quality or encoder difficulty, it is still a potential problem, and I feel like some of those Nightbot text blocks could be replaced with just those commands. That way it's in chat where viewers are going to see it to actually use it instead of scrolling by on stream, which if they miss it, then they got to wait for it to show back up again, especially since one of the Nightbot blocks, it actually has a broken URL. Like his YouTube one just has the URL attached to another word and it's not clickable and all that. That kind of thing needs a little bit of polish up. Not a big deal, but something worth looking into. Layout and branding wise, he's doing a good job overall. A lot of his branding elements, like he has this little, number of chicken dinners for the day that pops up and blends into the PUBG UI. Well, the chicken doesn't, but the text for it does. And I don't know that it was intentional, but a lot of his other text elements and things like that really kind of fit the UI of the game that he's playing, PUBG. It fits into it. It looks similar style. For the most part, it blends in, except for his webcam frame, which is a pretty decent looking, animated webcam frame, but it's completely unlike anything else he has on screen, and just has this weird contrast of, I just found this cool animated webcam frame, here it is, when I feel like something better could be very easily made, you know, just a basic outline or something with the same white color scheme, or not too difficult to find to integrate better into his UI, because that entire like blended UI concept is really cool. Just needs, you know, that. And then his camera setup, he's currently using a C920, but he just picked up an A6000 camera to switch in as his webcam, and he's still learning that to kind of, you know, transition over. And overall, you know, webcam feed looks fine. It's not, you know, it's stable. He has not much going on in his backdrop, but he uses color lighting to spice it up. But his webcam is at an angle, you know, it's one of those side cams, which is fine. I'm down with that. He is looking into the frame. We talked about that last episode. You don't want to be looking out of the frame. He is looking into the frame, but there is a ton of dead space in that camera feed, because he's over here on one edge of the frame looking into the video, and then there's all this just empty wall and a tiny sliver of his monitor that is mostly pointless to the viewer. But that space could be much better used for the game itself, or just, you know, cropping it off. So I always recommend, the vast majority of streamers do not need a 16:9 webcam, and this is one of the most common, you know, things that people do and don't really think about, is they just slap up their webcam and, you know, it's fine, it's whatever. But think about where you're, you know, stream is a video platform. It is video. It is beholden to the same video rules as every other, you know, form of video, and that includes composition. Think about your camera composition. If you have all of this dead space in front of you, it's pointless. Like there's nothing of value added here. Your viewer's not seeing any more personality. They're not seeing your actual setup. You know, they're not seeing anything. Crop it off, make it smaller, or, you know, make the width smaller. Then you can make it a little bit bigger to compensate, which is nice. They can see you a little bit better, because at the moment it's kind of distant. And then you get more space for your game. Always a recommendation I want to make, especially if you are swapping out your webcam frame anyway, just crop it off. Always crop it off. Now, you don't want something too cramped where you're just like, you got zero headroom, it's cropped to the exact pixel of the top of your head and the side of your shoulders, and you're cramped in a box, and this is all your viewers can see. But you also don't want, you know, a football field's of headroom left over. So with the scrolling text thing as well, he has the PUBG Xbox One X logo overlaid in the top left corner of his stream. That is always there. Again, I don't know if this is some sort of sponsorship, or if he's just trying to make it clear that he's playing on Xbox versus PC or any other platform. Also, it would appear, I haven't actually looked this up, but I'm wondering if PUBG on Xbox has crossplay, because it specifically identifies whenever you've killed people, the little Xbox logo next to their name. So if it has crossplay, this is the first I'm hearing of it, or either they're updating it for crossplay. Obviously, this doesn't matter for his stream, just something I didn't know about the game. But yeah, he has that logo in the top left corner. And again, that is an extra text detail that needs to be resolved. It's not moving, so that's a good thing, but it's like semi-translucent, and so you still have the game moving underneath it, and that's just a lot of like fine, weird detail to compress that I don't feel is necessary if he's not contractually obligated to put it there, but that's totally his call. If he wants to keep it there, if he has it there for a reason, so be it. By all means, continue. I just wanted to give my opinion. Before we get to the main theme that is going to kind of tie these two streamers together, I did want to go ahead and go over his specs real quick here. And I was actually kind of impressed, because this is a situation where someone just has a computer that runs decent enough, and they're streaming with it. They're not aiming for the most baller setup, and it works, and they're fine with it. And I have a lot of respect for that. That is actually part of the whole point of the show, is not to tell people to upgrade their setups, but to just show them how to get the most of it. This dude is streaming on an AMD Phenom 2 time, you know, X6, because it's a 6-core, 1055T from 2011. This is a 6-core, 2.8 gigahertz processor. He's got 12 gigs of RAM, a GTX 960, and he's running new NVENC with Psycho visual tuning on, because it's a dedicated streaming rig for a console, so the 960 does have the extra CUDA, you know, power for it. He's only streaming at 4.5 megabits per second, or 4,500 kilobits per second. At that bitrate, I might actually recommend dropping it to 720p. Experiment with it, see if it looks better to your eye, or if you don't notice a difference. I do feel like for that lower bitrate, 720p is going to be a lot more advantageous. And if he's playing on Xbox One X, that might mean that he's playing at 4K, or at least super sampled 4K, which would scale evenly down to 720p. So, you know, you don't have any issues there. I would recommend experimenting with that, because you might get a little bit more clarity out of that lower resolution at such a low bitrate, or if your bandwidth supports it, It's time to crank that bitrate up, people. Also in his advanced settings, he has it set to Rec 601 color space. Everybody should be setting it to Rec 709 these days. Just make sure that your capture card settings are also set to 709 instead of 601. Again, he's using a C920, but he also has the A6000, which is a work in progress for him to integrate. He has the AT2020 USB microphone. It actually sounds pretty good. Overall, his audio levels are pretty solid. His voice sounds totally fine. In his audio processing chain, he has both noise suppression and noise gate before a limiter at the end. And typically I would see that and I would be like, no, don't use noise suppression and noise gate together. Pick one, because noise suppression typically gives you that toilet bowl effect and can make some things sound weird, and usually you want one or the other, but his actually sounds really good. If you set it up right, noise suppression can work, especially with a microphone like that, and he seems to have it set up right because it sounds totally fine. And even when he's just like mumbling or humming, that's all picked up totally fine. So I was impressed with his audio quality. His chat with his team balance could use a little bit of improvement, but his game sound and his voice and things like that are all fairly evenly balanced. You can always hear what's going on. Nothing's too loud or abrasive, so props there. And then he does have a stream deck, which he uses to trigger all sorts of stuff. Now, specifically, as I mentioned before, there's a little command thing. When he wins a chicken dinner.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Let's go.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner!
Chicken starts raining from the sky, and he puts on a chicken head and starts dancing, which is pretty freaking awesome, honestly. Like, I love seeing things like that. And that's actually, I'm gonna suggest going in more on that to really spice up the stream. Because when he reached out, he's interested in taking his stream to the next level. He's been streaming for a while, as I said. He's really happy with his audience. He believes his audience is really happy with the stream, and from what I can tell, that's probably the case. But he wants, a little bit more growth and a little, to build up that engagement a little bit better. And to do so, I really think you need to go all in more on this viewer interaction. His stream is very, and this is going to be sort of true of both of these streamers, this is a consistent theme, his stream is quite low energy overall compared to your average Twitch streamer, which is, what's up everybody, today we're playing some Fortnite, we're gonna get the epic W, fellow gamers, and it's gonna be awesome, woo, do the pon, whatever, I don't know what the kids are doing these days, but you get the idea. And his isn't like that. And that's fine. There is a big, there's a big difference in style between someone who is ADHD energy all over the place, let's stream, yeah, and someone who just wants to chill and play with his friends. But there's also some improvements to make there. And I want to point out that I don't think that one needs to be inherently more successful than the other. You can be a high energy, super enthusiastic streamer, and your viewers find you annoying as hell and don't want to watch you. And you can be a super chill, laid back streamer and your viewers are totally engaged and they want to watch your every stream, and that's cool too. You do need to find a balance of what your actual focus is on your stream. So as mentioned, Chris Katara's stream here is very low key for the most part. He's just chatting with his gaming buds, maybe acknowledging chat from time to time, although I struggle to find those moments when I'm scrolling through it, but I know that he does. I have found them. And, coordinating with his teammates, and it's very focused on the gameplay. That is, plenty of streams do that where they're just very focused on winning. They clock in, clock out, win, do a little bit of chat communication, and that's it. However, if you really want to build up, more dedicated followers, more followers in the first place, really build up that next level of engagement, the next step is to spend less time actually gaming, as counterintuitive as that seems, and more time chatting with your friends. Either build up a just chatting, not with your friends, with your fans. Build a just chatting screen so that you have your webcam full screen, or, taking up most of the screen with your chat on there. Hang out, chat with them, start the stream by just chatting with them, get some conversations going, and spend some of that dead time during a game, because especially battle royales, and this is the one reason that I don't like that they've taken over compared to traditional first-person shooters, is there is so much downtime. Spend a lot of that downtime on a different scene with something more engaging going on, talking to your viewers and things like that. If you're playing with consistent party buddies who aren't streaming, let them take the helm for actually setting up the match and getting things going and letting you know when to go, so that you can focus on your stream and really communicate with them. And specifically, as an example here, when you're doing that chicken dance, have a button on your stream deck that activates all of that. and switch your screen over to a full screen webcam so they can see you dancing around in that chicken mask full screen with the chicken raining over top instead of just a little face cam in the corner. You know, little details like that really kind of start to make the difference. And since you do have colored lighting going, you can get certain, I don't have specifics, you will have to research it, or if I can think of it, I will put it in the description if I find it in time. But you can get specific either lights, or at least with if this then that triggers, you can get lights set up to coordinate with your stream deck itself, so you can have them to start changing colors too while you're in chicken dance mode and what have you. But more of that during your stream, because going through like a full stream VOD, it is like a tiny little bit of intro and then gameplay for hours, and then it ends. And I really feel like in between every couple matches, you need to have break time, or either be switching while you're switching lobbies and things like that to a full screen just chatting screen, and to something more entertaining that you're doing beyond just gaming. Because we're getting to the point where, you know, if you really want to grow and build up production value and all of that, the focus needs to be spent less and less on just gaming and more on literally just entertaining your audience, because that is what you're there to do. Not everybody's willing to commit to that, but that is how you know, and you can still do all of this without changing your total style. You don't need to become, you know, a super enthusiastic hyper kid for it. You just got to spend some time chatting. It can be chilled and laid back, but spend it, you know, changing up the scenery, changing up the camera angles, changing up, you know, what viewers are seeing on screen, and engaging with them more personally. Before we get to our next streamer for today's episode, as always, I wanted to tell you about our sponsor, Owned. Owned is the reason that this, you know, series is able to be made. I'm gonna get closer here so we can talk about it, because I've got this new Sony a6400, and this autofocus is amazing. Sorry, I'm just still having fun with it. So Owned is your one-stop shop for all of your branding and resources and packages for not only just your stream, but your social media as well. Overlays, alerts, panels, and more for streamers, featuring premium designs and even complete revamp packages. They've got banners, avatars, clan logos, sound clips for your alerts, and even full websites to match your stream branding and keep it all together. Find stream designs with the "wow, where did you get that" effect on Owned. And they're even compatible with Twitch Studio, which just went into public beta. Video on that soon if it's not up already. Go check them out at eposvox.gg/OWN3D. Huge thanks to them for sponsoring Stream Critique and making this possible. Go check them out. Let's get to our next streamer. Our next streamer for Stream Critique episode 2 is Supik Derek RPG. Super Derek RPGs, or Super Derek, a man after my own heart, streaming retro games in their native 4:3 aspect ratio, the way it was meant to be done. His current layout is fairly new, but judging by, you know, his older clips and things like that, but it is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal. So his layout, he has his gameplay in, you know, since it's, you know, older retro games in their native aspect ratio, which is mostly 4:3-ish, or a square of some sort on the right-hand side, pushed over. He does have some sort of little background there, and the gameplay has a little bit of drop shadow. I would wonder if it might be better to just push the gameplay, you know, that extra few pixels to full screen. Maybe not, whatever. And then over on the left, he has his face cam at the top, his little logo bug in the top left in the dead space of his face cam, and then chat set up as if it's an old retro RPG menu system or dialogue box, where it has the white border, the pixel text, and it actually draws out character by character as chat plays. I'm actually gonna follow up on email and ask how he's doing this, because this is the kind of setup that I've been wanting to set up for my freaking baller retro streaming room that I have been waiting to show you. Video on that soon. Get subscribed, because it is amazing, and I have already been working on some sort of layout like this. I don't go for the older RPG aspect, so mine will look a little bit different, of course. I'm not going to totally rip them off, but this is freaking cool. And this is, you know, the extra level of polish that I keep talking about, of kind of unifying everything that you're doing. He's got the retro logo, he's got the retro chat, he's playing retro games. It's all together until his alerts pop up.
There's no hope, eh?
And then I was very disappointed, because all of his alerts are the basic default Streamlabs alerts with the default font, default graphics. None of it matches the stream, and specifically one of them, I'm forgetting which one it is here. Actually, it's right here. I believe either the follow or sub alert actually, I guess it would have to be a sub alert because it has text over it, is over top of his chat box, and the text itself is also over top the chat box and becomes completely unreadable. So that was disappointing. That definitely needs moved and adjusted in a way that does that. That one did have a custom animation, although Bits does not, but I would definitely recommend you can 100% easily change the fonts over on Streamlabs. So finding a retro font to implement, or you can use custom CSS to find a custom font for it, I believe, and making that unify a little bit more, and then finding someone who can make, or either making it yourself if you're capable, the rest of the alerts that fit your retro theme a little bit better. Because you right there on the edge of everything being what I'm always talking about unifying your branding. But that one thing, you know, an important thing to a stream's production value, arguably, was not. So get that done, and you have nearly a flawless like setup for a unified stream layout. So good thing, you know, good stuff there, Super Derek. I did actually email him and ask how he was streaming his retro games just out of curiosity so I could share with you all. I don't actually have his specs, but he is streaming on original retro hardware, which is something I always prefer, with the open source scan converter, which is a line doubler, has that running into, I believe, the AverMedia C027 capture card that I just reviewed from 2010. And he has another device to kind of stabilize the signal. But, you know, original hardware, just line doubled up to fit a modern capture card and be recorded, which is really cool to see. Not a lot of people are doing that. And the results are actually very impressive. He's only streaming at 1080p 63 megabits per second, but due to the retro nature of his streams and the fact that most, you know, a good chunk of his stream is dedicated to not moving content, and it's all retro games which don't have a ton of, you know, pixel effects and smoke and things like that. It's all simplified graphics. I never really noticed any compression issues. So that's something worth noting if you're streaming purely like really retro games, stuff that's barely 3D or stuff that isn't 3D at all, you're not always gonna need a high bitrate. And so while I'm telling everybody else to crank up your bitrate, for Super Derek, I'm not gonna do that. His Twitch panels look great and does match the rest of his branding for the most part as well, so that's cool to see too. I did wanna give some feedback on his face cam, however, as on the VOD that he sent me and some of the clips that I'm seeing, his face is kind of like right here, and he's talking. He's like, "Yeah, guys, hey, I'm playing the game," and it's like forehead cam and then a ton of headroom above his head. And this is really common. It does seem like he moves around a lot, so maybe that's just a consequence of, you know, your camera static and he's adjusting his, you know, you gotta stay comfortable when you're streaming for a long period of time. That's why it's important to invest in an actual worthy chair of supporting your body for 8 to 12 hours on end. This is not an ad for the chair I have. I will not link it unless someone asks. But there's been a lot of discussion recently about gamers not wanting to pay for quality chairs, and that just seems absurd to me because it is the most important part of your setup. Moving along, his face cam typically has a lot of headroom, and it's really awkwardly cropped in a way that's kind of off-putting at times. And I would definitely recommend trying to angle it a little bit better so that your face is more centered and not, you know, whatever. And then you do see his games and retro backdrop in the background, but there's no lighting on it. It's super dark. You just get a little tease, a little hint that he's got some games back there. I'd suggest getting even just basic string Christmas lights that are one color or something, or a basic light that you can shine onto it in a way that's pleasing and soft that shows off a little bit of your backdrop a little bit more. I'm a huge fan of high key, high contrast lighting. You know, my main webcam face cam setup I have here is me really bright, but my background really dark, because that also helps me, you know, hide my super messy living room. But when you have a backdrop that's actually pretty interesting and relevant to what you're streaming, I might suggest turning it up a little bit. Totally up to him, of course. But I want to see them games. And then we get to the, you know, theme that matched with Chris Katara as well. As for the most part, what I was finding when I was skimming through the VODs is that this is another, you know, kind of low energy stream, which is totally fine. And his viewers were actually insanely engaged, but I would like to see a little bit more of that dead air kind of filled, because there were a lot of times where he was just playing, not talking. There wasn't really anything exciting happening in the game, so there wasn't even a ton of sound, and it just really felt like dead air, that just keeping that constant conversation with yourself or with your audience up as you're going, just always be talking for the most part about something, describing the game, describing what you're doing, making jokes about it or something, goes a long way to just keeping it more engaging, keeping audience retention around longer, and keeping more viewers happy. I did see at various points he would kind of supplement some of the awkward silence with doing goofy reads of the dialogue when there wasn't any voice acting in the game, which is a great way to do it in those situations, and that's really cool to see. You know, people always see it as like being nerdy or something, but that's usually very entertaining for viewers and helps fill that silence. But there were still a lot of other times that were just kind of empty, just playing the game. And you want to keep viewers around unless they're here totally for the game. You're going to want to keep, you know, talking and things like that. I don't expect you to get up and dance or to do anything like that. You could use some more time, like, you know, breaks from the game, intermissions where you are chatting with your audience, talking about retro topics. Integrate if you're doing, you know, weekly or bi-weekly, or not bi-weekly, or 3 times a week streams or whatever. I didn't happen to look at his specific schedule. If you're doing regular streams, either supplement one of the streams for like a shorter one that is just talking about like interesting things in your niche. So for retro games, talk about retro gaming news. There's always new gadgets or, you know, approaches to games or what games you're playing recently. You know, have a just kind of just chatting stream where you talk about retro gaming news and recent topics and your impressions and just chatting with your viewers. Or if you're doing less frequent streams, have an intermission in the middle of your stream or at various points in your stream where you kind of take a break from the game and talk about those things. And again, changing up the camera angle and what you're doing. You could even go as far as setting up a separate camera and things, pointing at your retro gaming shelves, and then go stand in front of those and talk about that stuff and then come back. You know, you could do a lot of that where you're creating a more dynamic live stream that is going beyond just sitting in one spot playing one game. I hope that makes sense. I hope that provides some good feedback on how you guys, not only just the participants, but the viewers, can improve your live streams. You don't always have to be just on, you know, Adderall, just bouncing off the walls, playing games and screaming and yelling and shouting and dancing and flashing lights all the time. You can run a low energy stream and still be successful. You still need to have that personal connection with your audience, even if it's on like a lower key level. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Links to both streamers will be in the description below as always, as hopefully this time a form where you can fill out, because I do have specific information I want to request to apply for stream critique to be in future episodes and get featured and get feedback and things like that. I didn't have it last time after I said I would, so I just had people emailing stream@eposvox.com in case the form isn't there. But hopefully I'll have the form here linked in the description below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe for more streaming education, tech education, stream guides, stream critiques. I'm EposVox, and go check out our sponsor, Owned, at eposvox.gg/OWN3D, and I'll see you next time.